Chapter 269. Before she could finish her sentence, a few short blue-skinned aliens appeared around her. Thea counted 7 of them. Welcome to Ura, Earthling. We are the guardians of the universe. The leader of the blue-skinned aliens seemed to be afraid that she was still in shock, so he calmly repeated himself. These guys were the guardians? They claimed to have lived for countless years, but there didn't seem to be anything special about them. Thea didn't use the Eye of Horus, but she took the opportunity to observe them while they were talking. There was no trace of magic, no divine power, and they were less than a meter tall, not to mention physical attack power. These guys only had a unique life form, but other than that, she couldn't see how strong they were. Were you the ones who pulled me here? Before Thea could finish her sentence, she was interrupted by a green light flying from afar. A purple alien wearing traditional Green Lantern tights walked out of the green light. He didn't even look at Thea, but shouted at the guardians floating in the air. You want to recruit another Earthling? Wasn't Hal Jordan's lesson enough? Earthlings have weak wills. They're not suitable for the Green Lantern Corps. The dwarves calmly waited for the newcomer to vent his dissatisfaction. It was only when the purple alien was done that they slowly began to explain. Sinisto, she wasn't recruited by us. She was pulled here by the yellow energy. We just found out about it. Yellow energy, yellow light. The purple-skinned alien named Sinisto was shocked by the news for a few seconds, but he immediately realized something. He turned to the guardians and asked, You've already made the yellow light ring? My will is enough to control fear. Give me the light ring, and I'll destroy the parallax demons. However, his bold words didn't get a response from the guardians, because another green light came to the top of the mountain, and the newcomer revealed herself. I won't allow you to sacrifice Earth, although Earth is young. But, Hal Jordan, who had hurriedly flown over from Earth, was stunned by the scene in front of him. Who was this young lady dressed like an Earthling? He wanted to finish his sentence, but he realized that he had forgotten what to say. He opened his mouth wide and looked at Thea in a daze. No wonder Hal Jordan was nicknamed Husky. How could he be so silly? Thea did not feel the joy of seeing a fellow villager. She only felt that she was involved in a huge trouble. You're from Earth? No lamp ring? Without modification, how could you adapt to the oxygen and gravity of this planet? Hal Jordan also forgot his purpose. He took out his light ring and scanned Thea. He found that she was not an alien who looked like an Earthling, but an Earthling. But how could this be? This caused the worldview that he had just rebuilt to collapse again. Could it be that the physical fitness of the people on Earth was so good? Could it be that I am a fake Earthling? Sinisto Hal Jordan. This Earthling's name is Thea Quinn. She was summoned by the yellow light ring. We just completed the yellow light ring 3 minutes ago. So, the leader of the dwarves hesitated for a moment before deciding to tell the truth. Hal Jordan was still immersed in the question of whether he was an Earthling or not. If he was not an Earthling, would he still need to risk his life to protect Earth? You must be joking. How could this Earthling be recognized by the yellow light ring? Not only is she a weak Earthling, but she is also an Earthling. Sinisto pointed at Thea and loudly vented his dissatisfaction. The guardians could understand Sinisto's dissatisfaction. After all, they had said that the yellow light ring would belong to him. Now that Thea had appeared, it seemed that they were going back on their word. However, they were wrongly accused. This was the will of the yellow light ring, and it was not under their control. The guardians communicated telepathically, and the leader of the dwarves said, Sinisto, you are the strongest warrior in the Green Light Corps. We trust you, but this Earthling was also personally selected by the yellow light ring. You must prove that you are stronger than her. Only then will the yellow light ring acknowledge you. Sinisto knew that the guardians were afraid that he could control both the green light and the yellow light at the same time, but he was still angered by their betrayal. How do you want me to prove it? Does this woman have the ability to fight? Or are you going to let the 2 Earthlings fight together? The birth of the yellow light ring is inevitable. Although we are the founders of the Green Light Corps, the yellow light ring is also a part of the universe. Sinisto, your worries are completely unnecessary. We will not obstruct you. We will only facilitate it. The leader of the dwarves explained, "You will fight it out in the Green Light Corps arena. Earthling, what do you think?" The dwarf turned to ask Thea. At this moment, Thea's mind was in turmoil. The yellow light ring, it had actually chosen her. Shouldn't it have chosen Sinisto at first glance? To be honest, Thea did not like this so-called emotional power. This kind of power was too illusory, and there was not a trace of feedback to the body. In terms of life's natural order, all the holders of the lantern ring were mortals, including the seemingly powerful Sinisto. His lifespan wouldn't last more than a few years longer than his fellow clansmen. When his lifespan was up, the lantern ring would fly away. Any glory or victory would be nothing more than a passing cloud. When this group of people mentioned the yellow light ring, they would think of fear, as if it was an incomparably evil power. However, Thea, who had mastered magic, had a different view. Light was not justice, and darkness was not evil. This theory was also valid on the emotional spectrum. It was laughable to artificially determine emotions as good or evil. Fear could give people enough faith. Wasn't Batman a living example? On the other hand, Thea did not feel that she had the power to control fear. She was afraid of many things, and it was fundamentally different from Sinisto's steel-like will. However, now that the yellow light ring was waiting for her in front of her, she did not need to do the prerequisite mission. It would be a pity to give it up. Following the Transmigrator's principle of getting it first, regardless of whether it was useful or not, Thea decided to compete with Sinisto. A few guardians took the lead and flew to a mountain not far away. Sinisto's face was ashen, and he followed without a word. "Can you fly? I'll carry you." Hal Jordan still did not understand what had happened, but seeing Thea's navel and long legs, he wanted to help this fellow Earthling. "Don't touch me. I can fly by myself." Thea waved her hand and rejected his help. After the parallax's mental suppression, her mental strength had reached a new level. The magic reaction in Oyue's air was much higher than on Earth, and she could fly with her own magic. Although she was not as fast as the Green Lanterns, the distance in a straight line was not far. Thea landed lightly on their arena. Hal Jordan was the last to arrive. He was stunned by Thea's ability to fly by herself. Without the help of the yellow light ring or any technological equipment, she just flew away. After a long while, Hal Jordan came to his senses. This woman was definitely not someone to be trifled with. The water on Earth was much deeper than he had imagined. Thea's independent flight was nothing in the eyes of the Guardians, but to Sinisto, who was still in the normal range of life, it was quite a shock. Having traveled to countless galaxies, he had seen some planets with life forms that were far beyond the local ordinary level. Although he still said it with disdain, he was already on high alert. Chapter 270. In Sinisto's eyes, Thea was a special species in the local food chain. After some mutations, she had abilities that far exceeded those of the same species. He could tell from Hal Jordan's dull eyes that this was definitely not the average level of an Earthling. With this in mind, Sinisto wasn't that angry about Huang Jie's choice. He had previously thought that it was a trick of the Guardians, but if it was an expert, he wasn't afraid of competing with him. "No, this is the war of the lantern rings. What's the point of taking off the ring? I reject this proposal." After a discussion, the Guardians suggested that Sinisto take off the Green Lantern ring and fight Thea. If Thea was just an ordinary Earthling like Hal Jordan, Sinisto wouldn't be afraid if she took off the ring. However, now that Thea could fly by herself, this made his heart pound. There were many races in the universe that could fly, but there were very few humanoid creatures that could fly by themselves. At the very least, if Sinisto took off his ring, he wouldn't be able to fly. Therefore, he rejected this proposal without thinking. Sinisto insisted that this was the war of the lantern rings. After another round of silent communication, the Guardians finally made a concession. "Miss Thea, do you have any objections to using the Green Lantern ring in battle?" Thea's ability to fly had also caused their attitude to change a little. They no longer addressed her as an Earthling. "Can't the Green Lantern Corps use it too?" Thea didn't want to work for these old farts who had lived for hundreds of millions of years. "You can use a temporary ring." A light green ring appeared in front of Thea in the void. After receiving her nod, the ring automatically slipped onto her right middle finger. A massive amount of information entered her mind. Only then did Thea realize that she had been a little narrow-minded. The power of the lantern ring was very similar to magic power. Magic power existed forever, and the power of emotions had the same characteristics. As long as there was life, these emotions would exist forever. The power of the lantern ring didn't repel magic power. The two tested each other and discovered each other's characteristics at the same time. The two ancient and eternal powers miraculously merged together temporarily. The Green Lantern ring required willpower and courage. Thea's willpower had been tempered by magic to surpass most intelligent life. But what about courage? Did Thea have the courage to ask herself? With the power of the lantern ring, she saw the heart that she had never faced before. Malcolm had said that she was a natural warrior, and that wasn't a lie. The spectrum of emotions reflected a green ocean in her heart. This was the true portrayal of her heart. Regardless of whether she was facing Horus or Ares, she would bravely rush forward. She had a courage that she did not even realize. With her as the center, the green light swelled in all directions. In the center of the vortex, Thea raised her right hand and completed the transformation. Fortunately, it was only a temporary ring, and she didn't need to recite the oaths that she thought were shameful. However, the green and black tights were automatically put on without any discussion. Amazing courage. This is the first time I've seen someone who can produce such power after wearing the Green Lantern ring. I admit that you are a great warrior. The complaint on Sinisto's lips had disappeared. That was the truth. His pride wasn't to the extent that he would ignore Thea and spout nonsense. But it's strange. Why did the Green Lantern ring choose that earthling over there and not you? Strength won respect. Hal Jordan, who was already disliked, was automatically demoted to that earthling in Sinisto's words. He wasn't the only one who didn't understand. The Guardians who had lived for countless years didn't understand either. Could it be that the ring selection process had gone wrong? Although they hadn't seen Thea's physical body yet, they could tell that she was several levels stronger than Hal Jordan based on her power. Hal Jordan, who didn't know that he had been treated as a faulty program, was enthusiastically explaining the principles of materialization to the Earthling lady. As long as it's something you can imagine, it can be materialized by the lantern ring. My experience is to experiment with some weapons. Are you an American too? You're so young. Have you touched a pistol before? Let's start with a pistol. Thea initially listened to his long-winded ramblings, but she later realized that his imagination could only be described as poor. Pistol? What a joke. A more brainy piece of equipment, you can conjure a pistol to do the same. The knowledge of a mage wasn't inferior to that of a veteran Green Lantern who had traveled through many universes. Thea had the memories of that transmigrator, so she didn't lack imagination. She quickly selected a materialized body suitable for combat, shaped it with great courage, and completed the specific outline with her willpower. A green monster appeared in this distant star system. The monster looked like a giant tree from afar, but upon closer inspection, one would realize that the branches were made up of 50 heads and 100 arms. Each arm was holding a sharp giant sword. This was a legendary creation of divine power that should not exist in this world. It was a divine abomination, the 100-armed giant. Hal Jordan, who was next to Thea, was analyzing the process of materializing a pistol to a mortar. He almost bit his tongue when he saw such a big monster that was obviously not to be trifled with. Especially when he saw that every face of the monster that Thea materialized was lifelike, and every weapon was like a real object. He was completely speechless and hid in a corner to draw circles. No matter how slow Hal Jordan was, he could see that Thea was much smarter than him. He couldn't help but blame the previous Green Lantern who gave him the lantern ring. This guy must have been seriously injured and made a mistake. He was just an ordinary earthling. He really didn't have the talent to be a Green Lantern. Amazing talent. To be able to reach this level on your first contact with the lantern ring, you are a strong person. I apologize for looking down on earthlings. Sinisto wasn't afraid because of the strength of his opponent. Instead, he excitedly materialized his physical body. It was a green giant that looked exactly like him. It held a large axe in its hand and roared at Thea's 100-armed giant without showing any weakness. The larger the materialized body, the more powerful it was, but the larger the body, the stronger the person's emotions. From the outside, Sinisto's giant was 70 meters tall, while Thea's giant was only 50 meters tall. It seemed that Sinisto had won by quite a bit, but considering the length of time that both sides had been in contact with the lantern ring, and the fact that Thea's ring was temporary, it could be said that the difference between the two sides wasn't that big. On the other hand, Thea's 100-armed giant was more detailed than Sinisto's. This was also why he valued it so much and even apologized to Earthlings. If Earthlings had Thea's qualities, they would have unified the universe long ago. In order to show that he valued his opponent, Sinisto turned on the lantern ring's language function and adjusted it to Earth's English. "Let's begin." As he spoke, he materialized two longswords. Hearing an alien speak English was indescribable. Thea was afraid that she would laugh, so she kept a straight face and also materialized a two-handed sword.